In 1835, American author Nathaniel Hawthorne wrote a story called The Gray Champion, in which a little-known man from Boston single-handedly stops a procession of invading British soldiers. Fast forward to today, when an Austin resident, Joe Stack, crashes his plane in protest of the government. So is Stack the next Gray Champion? Well, joining me live from Nashville, Tennessee, is Daniel Forrest with GrayChampion.com. Daniel, thanks so much for joining me. So first of all, you guys named Joe Stack as your first Gray Champion of the 21st century. That honor is reserved for, quote, those few great Americans by whose action the course of our nation was forever changed. You put him in the same league as Frederick Douglass, Rosa Parks, and Robert E. Lee. Why?
The basic reason why is that what the act that Joe Stack committed was a confirmation of an existing state of mind that exists in the American public today and has existed in its past, of an extremely agitated and an alienated American public against a government that the public is convinced has turned against them. In other words, what he did was what every American citizen wants to do if they had but the courage and or opportunity to do it, Priya.
Okay, but Daniel, you know, many people are saying that Joe Stack is evil, and some are even angry that he isn't being considered a, quote, terrorist. You guys have written that, quote, he is currently being demonized by those who sit in the ivory palaces of wealth and privilege, who've forgotten what being an American is really about. What do you mean by that?
Okay, Priya, that's exactly right. And there are only 21 Gray Champions that we have identified in the entire almost 250 years of American history. And the first thing that identifies them is that, number one, they are demonized in their time by the acts that they commit. Make no mistake about it, that every American founding father at the time that the United States was formed were all considered terrorists by the British government who ruled the United States at that time.
And so you feel that Joe Stack is being demonized in the same way. So how do you think Joe Stack is really going to change the course of American history then?
Joe Stack is a symbol. That's what a great champion is. They're a symbol. Just like George Washington was a symbol, who was a former British officer, a hero of the the French and Indian War, where he fought under the command as an officer of the British Army, but then broke away from them. He is in the same mold as Nat Turner, who in 1831 massacred 55 white American women, children, and men in a slave rebellion. Make no mistake about it, Priya. To be a great champion is not to be a hero, but to be an individual who rises above society, but embodies the emotions and the anger and the angst of that society in changing the paradigm of what the direction that America is now going into.
Okay, so Daniel, you know, the last person to get the honor of Gray Champion before Joe Stack was Timothy McVeigh, who also is considered evil by the mainstream. How can you compare people like Joe Stack and Timothy McVeigh to people like Rosa Parks? I mean, are you kind of comparing this new anti-government movement to the civil rights movement in some ways?
Absolutely, make no mistake about it. Rosa Parks, who now, even in white society in the United States, is considered as a heroine. Make no mistake that at the time that Rosa Parks sat in the front of the bus, she was demonized. She was, in the American South, considered a terrorist.
And, you know, you've written that McVeigh is the first martyr in the struggle to regain the many rights and freedoms rapidly being taken away from U.S. citizens by the federal government. These days, it seems like a lot of people are complaining that their liberties are being jeopardized. Why do you think that is?
The reason that they're being jeopardized are many, but basically it's this. We have a country that is now ruled in the United States by an elite cabal of bankers who have bought and paid for the presidency of the United States, the Congress of the United States, and they have basically disenfranchised and alienated the 300 million American citizens who actually believe or should be in power.
And you know, you wrote that Joe Stack has fired the first shot in the new American Revolution. Do you think there's really a revolution on the horizon for this country? And what does the future hold then?
Absolutely. Make no mistake about it. You know, there is no headline that you can read in the United States that does not put the state of our nation in the most apocalyptic terms. The last great empire of the 20th century, the Soviet Union, suffered the same fate that we're suffering right now. Where can a small group of elite individuals control the lives and direction of millions of its citizens? The answer is no.
Well, Daniel, I want to thank you so much for joining us. That was Daniel Forest saying that Joe Stack is the first gray champion of the 21st century.